Hey, I'm Caleb with YouCanMakeThisToo, and today I'll be talking about this Gweike G2 fiber laser. The reason I accepted this to do the review on it is because it is a true fiber laser, and currently I believe one of the most, if not the most affordable one available in a true fiber. You'll find others that are around the same price point or cheaper, but a lot of those I've noticed are not true fiber, they're diode lasers, which we'll get into. But currently, yeah, this goes, which pricing is always changing, but this goes for $1,600 to $2,000 depending on which version you have. This is the $2,000 one, which has a larger burn area and also electric lift and raise motor. So yeah, let's go over some of the features and talk about fiber versus diode. So on the unit, we have three main components: the power supply, where the laser is actually generated. So it has lots of fans to help keep that cool. The laser head, and then the stand. And the laser head does come off of this stand pretty easy. Just has a little thumb screw on the bottom. Being able to take it off the stand easily is handy because then you can use this mobile shield, which is really useful to be able to set it on a large object that the base is larger than the base. And you can take this out and then try to shoot through that, but I think you'd probably lose some of the burn area. So if you want to get the full burn area, you can do this. And the nice thing then is this is actually at the proper height for focus. So you're in the right place if you wanted to burn on a large plate. And I suppose you could handhold, although personally, the idea of trying to handhold a laser and make sure it doesn't shift at all and ruin your burns is just kind of odd to me, but you could if you want to try. The stand is pretty handy. I would probably mostly be doing flat applications, so I have the locking pin in, but you can absolutely rotate this to work on a surface that isn't, not flat, but is at an angle, or also you can use this in combination with some of the rotaries to shoot, like say, inside of the rim of a cup or inside of a ring to do engraving in weird places that would otherwise be really hard to. So that's pretty nifty. One of the things I do really like about this version is the electric up and down. And it moves it slow enough that you can really dial in that focus point. With lasers, being in that focus zone is super important to get a good burn. And the ones that have handles on top, I reviewed one about a year ago, and you just spend forever cranking that thing if you're changing material of very much thickness. So I like the electric. That's really handy, and it is slow enough that you can really dial in the focus quite easily. Speaking of focus, this uses a 2 laser system, so it's really easy. All you have to do is raise and lower this until those dots are right on top of each other or as close as possible, and then you're at the proper distance. And I've got these coated aluminum cards that are super thin, so you can see there's not really a change. But say if I worked on a little bit thicker stock, I'm going to be off. But it's pretty quick and easy to get it dialed right in, back on focus. And speaking to the machine's versatility, there are 2 different rotary options. There is the roller style, which is really good for like mugs or large cylinders, say any type of pipes or stuff that you want to engrave things on. But there's also a chuck style, which is pretty nifty, and this actually articulates as well. And it's spring-loaded, which is kind of cool. I like that. And it has a variety of holes in it, so that way you can pin whatever object, different sizes. So this is where you'd use rings or even other glasses that are smaller or odd shape, because this is going to struggle with a really tapered cylinder. Whereas like say a cairn glass or something, you could put inside this to engrave. And there's a port on the back these go into on the machine, and then you just adjust the settings in the software to let it know that it's working off a roller, so that way it'll know to turn. And if you like the roller option, you'll like this because it kind of feeds into that, batching out crafty, personalized items. But this doesn't just have holes, these are all threaded, and it came with a variety of screws, so you can use these to set up some positive stops for things, as well as it has a couple angle brackets we can use here. So you could actually use this for the corner, or you can use them in combination to set up. So if you're doing a bunch of batches, right, and you know where you want things to be. And I like setting things up this way as opposed to using the corners, because the corners don't necessarily always perfectly align with the image, and moving the image in the software to get it exactly where you want it on stock is harder to get precise than it is to just okay, that's where the image is going to be. How do I align my stock perfectly to be centered or wherever? So that's nifty. And if you were engraving something really thick or tall, like a box that was going to come up a good bit, we actually have 2 spacers. So you can actually take this off and put a spacer under the head to elevate the head. That'd work great if that cone isn't really going to work on your object, but you need some more vertical height. All right, so went over the components and accessories, but I kept talking about how this is a true fiber laser. Well, there's not fake fiber lasers, but there are definitely companies that seem to be selling diode lasers as fiber lasers, calling them fiber lasers in the sense that a fiber laser is what you use to engrave metal, and because this diode can engrave metal, it's a fiber laser. And this fiber laser, I believe, does actually have a diode inside of it that initiates the laser beam, but the big difference is then there's a long fiber optic cable that beam keeps traveling through that can have different materials in it, and as it interacts with that material and bounces around in there, it gets more excited, gathers more photons, and comes out stronger. So because it's going through that long fiber optic cable, what you're generating is a much stronger beam than versus just what's coming out of the diode. And in those, I want to say some of those diode machines alluding to be a fiber, what they also do is mark it as a 20 watt machine, but what it's actually doing is consuming 20 watts of power. So there's 20 watts going in, but the strength of the beam itself is like 2, maybe 5, but pretty low, about 10%. Whereas this machine is generating a beam that's actually 20 watts of power. So it's sort of 20 watts in versus getting 20 watts out. So when you see, you know, a multi-component unit that's a fiber versus an all-in-one that's far more compact and says it's 20 watts, it's probably 20 watts in, consuming 20 watts, making a much weaker beam that's not a true fiber because it's not going through fiber optic cable, getting excited, whereas this is. And while both of those machines will work on the same material, you just have far more power here, so you can actually do cutting through that very thin material. You can do deep engraves. You can engrave significantly faster. You can do a lot more work in fewer passes. So, you know, everything that comes with more power, that's what you get here. And that's why this is really cool, because for the price of some of those kind of misleading machines, you can get a true fiber laser, and not just a diode at the same wavelength as a fiber laser, which is around 1064 nanometers, that can touch the same materials but with significantly less power. Hope that makes sense. Not that it's super confusing, but it's kind of hard to explain because I'm not an expert on this, just kind of familiar. Of course, being able to engrave metal and plastics is really cool, but one of the things I was excited about giving this a try on was the color engraving that it can do in stainless and titanium. So I got some stainless blanks so I could do up some business cards and start testing, figure out the range of colors we can do, and then hopefully get my logo on a card. I had to go back and forth between watching some other reviews that have done it as well as looking at the documentation. There's a lot of documentation that comes with this laser. I don't say that in a bad way. It's like, I love the information is good, lots of details. So that is a plus. I've reviewed other lasers where the documentation is seriously, seriously lacking, and it's very frustrating. Not the case here. But it took me a while working with the software to be able to get a range of colors, but I did manage to do it. What was hanging me up that I didn't catch was changing the line spacing to be small enough. The software defaults at around 20 thousandths of a millimeter, 0.02 millimeters, but I needed to be at 1,000th of a millimeter, 0.001, to really do tight, fine lines and really pack that heat in there so things can oxidize and produce the colors I was going after. One of the downsides of that is, especially at any kind of scale, you know, where you were making one line, now you're making 20 lines. So it's a lot slower. And those color engraves were very slow, but it did get color. The other thing that got me is I didn't realize, apparently this is, I don't want to say hacking because it does it, but it's sort of a novelty feature of having this kind of fiber laser do color on titanium and stainless. It's not really the intended purpose. Is just something you can pull off by playing with the power and frequency settings and fluctuating those to figure out, you know, what colors you can make them doing it. The problem is, as soon as your material is any slightest bit different, or difference in thickness, because that changes the way the heat works, or even I think the starting temperature of the material, honestly, I ran into, is going to change the way the color comes out. So if being able to consistently and repeatedly pull out the exact same color on material anytime is what you need to look at a MOPA fiber laser, an MOPA, which Gweike also makes. They make a MOPA laser. If you need that, make sure you look there. If you just want to be able to engrave on a wide range of metals and plastics, and might want to play with the color sometimes, but it's not something you need it to work every time exactly how you want it without having to do a bunch of experimentation, then this is awesome. Because I was able to pull it off, but then a few days later when I went to try to make my logo and I used the exact same settings, the color just didn't come out the same. And I honestly think that the biggest difference is just it's colder in my shop today. So this started off colder, which would mean I'd have to run a whole new battery of tests in order to get the colors dialed in the way I want them to. And that leads to my only real criticism of this machine, which even before I accepted it to do the review, I was a little hesitant on, and that it is not light burn compatible yet. They're working on light burn compatibility, and when that comes out, man, this is going to be an even bigger steal than it is at current prices and offerings. Because the software they're running seems very similar to CCAD, which I've tried before and had issues with. The issues I had before with a different version of CCAD I'm not having in this. Still took a while to get used to. Some of the tools I'm used to in Lightburn that make things really easy, like doing this color grid, would have been a few clicks and just a couple seconds in Lightburn, but took me about 20 minutes to have to build manually. And then anytime I want to make a change, took about another 5 minutes instead of click, click, go. So frustrating, not a deal changer, but if you're doing really intricate things, that's definitely going to slow you down. There's also going to be the learning curve if you're not familiar with it. Fortunately, they have quite a few videos on how to use it and a lot of documentation, so it didn't take me more than a couple hours of kind of watching some other people doing it, reading it, and playing with the software to be able to do everything I wanted to and kind of understand some of the quirks. But definitely be aware that you're going to have to learn that proprietary software that works with this machine unless the Lightburn compatibility has come out. And there you have it. That's kind of my thoughts and feelings on this. If you've seen my review videos before, you know I'm not the kind of guy who's just going to be like, you have to buy this, everyone needs this, it's the best thing ever, or this is the worst thing ever, or this is better than that. I like to just use it, come up with my experience, share my experience, and then give you my thoughts on how that fits. So I definitely summed that up about the color. If you need color consistently, you need to look at a MOPA laser. If that's something you want to play with, this can do it, and it can do it very well. Just expect experimentation. If you want to be able to engrave on metal and plastic, you know, up to 150 by 150 millimeters, which is a pretty good size, about that big, you know, and do so very quickly with high precision at, I think it's been a few days since I looked, but I want to say probably one of the best price points available right now in a true fiber laser. Like, this is going to get you there, on the caveat that you don't mind learning a new software package if you're not already familiar with some laser software package that you'd like. You do have to learn, but it's definitely very usable. It's just going to have to, you know, take a little bit of time to get to know their software, and then you'll be able to do whatever you want with this. In many other reviews have had people, or noticed a lot of people say that they had issues importing AI files, Adobe Illustrator. I didn't have any issues importing AI files, and several other, and SVGs. They all came in, no problem for me. How to engage with things. But yeah, if you want a budget price fiber laser, and for that mass savings, you're willing to learn a new software package until the Lightburn compatibility is out, I think this is definitely your ticket. Anyway, hope you learned something, were inspired, or at least entertained, and until next time, make time to make something, maybe with a Gweike laser.